My name is Shiva Rodriguez, and I'm pretty sure there's a Velociraptor living in our backyard. It's kind of weird. I mean, I have a hard time believing it myself. But, we live in Florida, and we do have reptiles that don't really belong here running loose all the time. I mean, we've got Burmese pythons all over the Everglades, and for a while we were all joking about how Orlando used to release a cobra every year because, pet cobras would get loose and they'd thrive. So, even around here in my neck of the woods, I've seen, snakes that aren't indigenous to the area, lizards. We've got Cuban tree frogs now that are eating all our other frogs. So it's not completely unbelievable that we might have a large reptile that's not, doesn't belong here running around. A lot of my friends have, either seen it or heard it. It's weird. Like my friend Sandy, she's over here all the time, and one day she found a deer that apparently had been mangled, and, I can't think of anything around here that would be able to do that to a deer.
I've known Shiva for quite a while. I've been coming over here for quite a few years. We've been doing koi ponds and doing yard work and several other things. And not that long ago, I came upon a dead deer. And let me tell you, it was just mutilated. Shiva tells me there's no bears in the area, and something nasty did this. I mean, literally, it tore the jaw right off of the deer. I literally brought it with me to show Shiva how nasty it was. They picked it almost clean, but the rest of the deer was absolutely mutilated. It was absolutely horrible and terrifying.
My partner, Lowrie, she comes down here a couple times a year. There was one day that she told me that she caught this on tape because she'd heard this weird noise, coming from the back. And, I watched the footage, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what made that.
Every time I go to visit Florida, I always stay at Shiva's house. And when I'm there, we spend a lot of time outside on the porch. We tend to eat dinner out there, and it's a place to hang out and talk. And it's also the only place to go if you want to have a cigarette because they don't allow smoking in the house. Well, one summer I was in Florida, and it was late at night and I couldn't sleep. So I decided to get up and go out on the porch and have a cigarette. And when I went out there, I could hear the crickets, I could hear the frogs. But then all of a sudden I heard this noise. It was like something I'd never heard before. It sounded like a small child screaming, "Help me, help me." And it was kind of freaking me out. And the more I listened to it, I was like, do I go inside and get somebody to call 911? Do we go check it out? What do we do? And as I was listening to it, it started sounding less like a child and more like something, I don't know, it was like something I'd never heard before.
Freaky, but I want to try to see if I can get this on video because I don't know what the hell I'm hearing. Okay. It's like it's out over there, and it sounds like it's coming from over there. I swear that sounds like a child, but oh my god. Okay, this is freaky.
I honestly can't figure out how something like that would be running loose around here. I mean, I don't even think it's indigenous. But, years ago they were digging a drainage canal in the back, and the only thing I can think of is maybe there was an egg or something in there, and I have no idea. I don't even think it's scientifically possible, but maybe it uncovered an egg and somehow it hatched. My friend Steve, he used to live here for a while. He was staying in our Florida room, which has this big glass door. And he moved out pretty quick after he swears that it tried to break into his room.
Shiva had casted me for a lengthy, meaty role, and for scheduling purposes, we thought it would be best if I'd lived there. So I took over the back Florida room that outlooked the yard and the acreage of property. Thought it was going to be the dream job. I ended up leaving there with nightmares. started when I woke up in the middle of the night from some noise. Crazy sounding, raspy type of barking. Though it wasn't a dog, I'd never heard any animal make this sound. So I started getting nervous. Happened a second night. Hair on the back of my neck started standing up. Just getting chills from this sound because it sounded like it was surrounding me. Felt like I was being stared at through the windows. It's when the scratching started. It really made me nervous. I woke up the next morning to find that the screens had been torn. And out of fear, I boarded up the back windows. That didn't help. The scratching started coming from underneath the floorboards. I moved.
And in fact, his son came out here for a while to try to catch the thing on tape, and then he did.
Yeah, I used to love going to Shiva's house, whether we were working on a film project or just hanging out in general. It was a cool place. But my dad would always get uneasy when I started messing around in the backyard, and he never really told me why. He just told me he didn't want me back there. And we got to talking about it, and he told me he used to live there. But something happened one night that caused him to have to move, and for the longest time he wouldn't tell me what that was. And I kept bugging him, and finally one night we're sitting down for dinner, and he tells me about his experience, and I gotta admit, he sounded a little crazy. I mean, he was describing these scratching noises and like low, raspy barking sounds. It didn't make sense to me. I told him there has to be a plausible explanation for it, so I decided that I was gonna get my camera equipment and head over there to see if I could figure out what was going on. And I gotta say, it was pretty boring. I mean, I was out there for almost 2 weeks and there was nothing. Until the day that I went to pack up my bags and leave. I'd had enough, and I caught something on video.
What? Holy shit! What is that thing?
I don't have the answers. I have no idea how this thing, got loose and started running around in the neighborhood, but I can't deny the fact that there probably is a Velociraptor in the backyard. My name really is Shiva Rodriguez, and there's definitely not a Velociraptor living in my backyard.
Hi, my name is Sandra, and yes, I did find a dead deer. Actually, my dog found the dead deer and brought me this wonderful jawbone. I'm sure it was killed by something or died of natural causes, who knows. It was not a Velociraptor. There is not a Velociraptor in Shiva's backyard.
The truth of the matter is, I really do stay at Shiva's when I visit Florida. That's because we tend to do a lot of our filming there. We are partners in our film company, and this time was no exception. I hadn't gone to sleep, and I hadn't gone outside to smoke. I was already outside. We were at the end of a long day of shooting, and I was running the boom mic. And we're used to hearing hold for sound, having to hold for planes or for the frogs or the crickets. But then I did hear this really weird noise, and it did. It sounded like a child saying, "Help me, help me." And I was like, what the hell? What the hell am I hearing? Well, come to find out, what I was hearing was the sound of a fox. So I now know conclusively what sound the fox makes.
Okay, so what really happened, I did move into Shiva's. We did film that project. It turned out amazing. The scratching noises were my own fault because I would sneak some of the delicious food that they would make constantly. I would sneak that into my room in the middle of the night for a little indulging snack. And it drew a family of raccoons to the patio, and they ended up nesting underneath the house, and it did frighten me, that's the truth. But yeah, it wasn't the ominous monster that we're speaking of here. The tortoise's mating near the creek created the raspy barking sound, and that did terrify me as well. City boy living in the woods.
So it turns out the story my dad told me just ended up being a family of raccoons that made their way under the house. But anyways, the footage that I shot, well, we were hanging out at Shiva's house and everyone was on the back deck. I was out back in the yard getting some B-roll footage for a project that we were working on, and I didn't know that one of our friends had showed up for a visit, and she let her dog Roxie out of the car, who took off running, came around the back of the house where I was at, and ripped through the grass at lightning speed. And well, it did startle me a little bit, and turns out it was just a dog having fun. But the verdict is still out on my dad. I think he's crazy.
Need anything?
I got something, but I couldn't tell if I got the dog in the frame on that one.
The reason why we made this video is to show people how easy it is to fake a conspiracy theory. I really wanted to show this because I would have people sending me videos about the coronavirus epidemic and calling it a hoax and showing me pictures of empty hospital waiting rooms and saying that that was proof that there was no virus, without thinking that, you know, of course the waiting rooms are empty. Nobody's allowed to visit a coronavirus victim. So I would tell people, since I'm a filmmaker, I would tell people, hey, look for hidden cuts, look for your background, look for things that aren't looking right, and look for really sketchy evidence. And, I would use the phrase, I could make a video to prove there's a Velociraptor in my backyard just as easily, and of course people thought I was kidding, so that's why we were doing this. But everybody who's on this video all agreed with me that, this hoaxy, pandemic thing is getting out of hand, and it is hurting people.
Please don't believe everything you see, and conspiracy theories aren't the way to go.
I just want to take a second to say that this is kind of a lesson to all of us. It's so easy to believe something that you see, especially when it's on the internet. When somebody says that something is the truth, or they tell you that something is the truth and they have evidence backing them up, take a minute and just really consider. We're living in a new normal. It's a different kind of world, and it pays to take the time to make sure that what you're watching and what you're seeing is actually true before you spread it around.
So as you see here with what we did, a little convoluted truth and perspective conspiracy theory is born. If you're anything like me and suffer from anxieties, some headlines can send you into a panic, and it's understandable. Just know that if you take a moment to breathe, you can always fact check your fact checkers. Don't always just react to the first shocking headline you see.
So remember, velociraptors don't kill people. Conspiracy theories about deadly pandemics kill people.